Milton, a small town in Maine, was the perfect place for those seeking peace. The forest that surrounded the town on all sides hid a history spanning thousands of years, but for the past month, its residents had been living in constant fear. It all began with mysterious animal killings. Cows and sheep were found torn apart, with massive tracks resembling those of a wolf left behind. Locals called it the Black Wolf. Witnesses described it as almost as tall as a human, with glowing red eyes piercing through the darkness. Legends of such a creature had been passed down since the town's founding, but now it seemed that the legend had come to life. Sheriff Henry Carter, a war veteran who had returned to his hometown, was a skeptic. "It's just an ordinary wolf that escaped from the nature reserve," he assured. But when a young girl, 18-year-old Emma Rose, a recent high school graduate, disappeared, the town fell into panic. On the outskirts, her torn backpack and those same tracks were found. Residents began to recall hearing strange howls and rustling beneath their windows at night. Among those determined to get to the bottom of the mystery was Clara Wilson, a journalist from Portland. She had always been intrigued by such stories. She arrived in town to write a report, but from the very first evening she realized this was more than just a legend. The locals were reluctant to talk, as if they feared mentioning the Black Wolf even in conversation. "You shouldn't stay here too long, miss," said old George, the diner owner. "He doesn't like strangers." Clara smiled dismissively, but later that evening, as she stayed in her room, she heard howling echoing through the forest. Meanwhile, the town held a council meeting. Sheriff Carter decided to organize a search party, and several local hunters ventured into the forest. Among them was Jacob Miller, Emma's father. Their hunt ended in tragedy. The next day, only their torn clothing and bloody trails were found. Clara felt that the story wasn't just about a wolf. She stumbled upon old archives in the town's library and discovered that in the 1700s, a woman named Mary Hayworth, accused of witchcraft, had been executed here. Before her death, she cursed the town, declaring that her shadow would always remain. She was rumored to have spoken with wolves. Clara didn't believe in legends, but some coincidences were too strange to ignore. The following night, she decided to venture into the forest herself to take photos. Armed with a flashlight and a voice recorder, Clara made her way to the spot where the hunters were last seen. The deeper she went, the denser the forest grew, and the silence that surrounded her made her skin crawl. Suddenly, she heard the snap of a twig. Her flashlight illuminated glowing red eyes emerging from the darkness. Before her stood a massive wolf, but its form was unnatural, almost human-like. It growled, and the air around her turned icy. Clara felt her knees buckle, but then the wolf snarled and stepped back. She turned to see an old woman in a black cloak. Her eyes glowed just like the wolf's. "He protects me," the woman whispered. "You shouldn't have come here." Clara fainted, only to wake at dawn on the edge of the forest. The sheriff and locals had found her, but she couldn't explain anything. Only one photo remained on her camera, a blurry image of a massive black silhouette. As weeks passed, the fear of the Black Wolf spread further. Townspeople began to avoid the forest altogether, and those who ventured close could often be heard whispering about the curse of Mary Hayworth. Sheriff Carter, now grappling with the truth he had been too stubborn to accept, started to investigate the mysterious woman in the black cloak. He found old records in the town archives confirming that Mary Hayworth had lived on the outskirts of Milton. Her house burned to the ground shortly after her execution. But a few documents hinted that her spirit was far from gone, and some even suggested she had made a pact with dark forces to bind herself to the land forever. Carter couldn't shake the feeling that the wolf was not merely a beast, but an extension of the curse that had been unleashed. Clara, haunted by her experience in the forest, returned to Portland, but found herself unable to forget the sight of those glowing red eyes. She started digging deeper into the legend, finding accounts from other towns across New England where similar creatures had been reported. A few days later, Clara left Milton. The town returned to its daily routine, but the people knew the black wolf still roamed their forests, and at night, when the howls echoed among the trees, no one dared step outside. Clara wrote an article, but many dismissed it as fiction. She, however, knew the truth. Some legends are best left in the darkness where they were born.